Good day, everybody. This is Todd Saylor, and this is the WDEX Wired Differently experience. Thank you for attending and listening to my podcast and my YouTube lives. I'm just so excited about everything that's going on. And welcome. WDEX, a Wired Differently experience. And yes, my name is Todd Saylor, and I am the author of the book, The Brand and the Attitudinal Disorder Wired Differently. My job is to encourage you. My job is to love you. My job is to maybe entertain you a little bit. My job is to teach you a few things or maybe just remind you of a few things. And the show's job is to challenge the status quo, to challenge your land of quo, this place of mediocrity that somehow drags us into it and engulfs our entire world. And your job, though, today, your job is to sit back and just relax. But I want you to think, be, and do differently in all that you're doing while you're listening and beyond this show, because differently is the key to the word wired differently. And it's certainly the key to this show. You see, different is an adjective. Differently is an adverb. An adjective describes a noun. An adverb brings action or modifies the adjective or the noun. Different is what we are. Differently is how we live, right? And so we've replaced the word different with differently because we're actionable. We modify the nouns. We modify the adjectives. I just want you to know you are differently. I am differently. We're wired differently. Well, today we're going to talk about your view is your reward. Your view is your reward. And I'm taking it from a chapter in my recent book, Drift Again. And I want to just talk and teach a little bit about your view. I wrote in depthly about this in the book from Drift Again, Wired Differently, Drift Again, the 8 traits of supremely purposeful people. And I just want to remind you that Drift Again is the number one trait of all supremely purposeful people. We're supremely purposeful. We're successful people. We want to be successful. We are wired differently, but for some reason, we just drift again. We drift right back into the place that once we had conquered, and we roll back in our focus. We drift back in our thoughts. We drift again, and we even sin again. And I just want you to know that's normal, but we've got to be aware of the drift, and especially the drift again. But the next 7 traits in Wired Differently are good traits that we talk about. And the view is one of the traits of a supremely purposeful person. And I want to talk about that to you right now. And the title of this message is Your View is Your Reward. So I want to set this entire teaching up, or this message up, from a story of when I was a younger man. I was recently married within the last 8 years, and we had 2 children, Courtney and Kendra, and they were about 5 and 6 each. And Tracy and I were just coming off of a horrible near bankruptcy, and we were fighting through paying back a lot of debts, and just an epic failure of a business in our early life. Our entrepreneurial career didn't start off well at all. We've been gracious for what we've been delivered over the years. We're 56, 57 now, or something like that. I seem to forget my age. After you get 50, you just kind of forget about how old you are. But I just want you to understand that we clearly don't know what we don't know until we open our view. You see, our view needs to be opened. We need to be supremely purposeful about opening our view. And let me repeat that quote one more time. It's the lead quote from my chapter, The View, and it's a quote from me. We clearly don't understand, or we clearly don't understand, or we clearly don't know what we don't know until we open our view. Our view must be broad and open so that we can see things differently, right? Differently. Well, here's the quick story. Somewhere around 1998, somewhere like that, I moved back to my hometown, Angola, Indiana, and we were suffering a great loss in our first entrepreneurial episodes together as business partners and husband and wife and parents. And we had to regather ourselves. We had no money. We had to start over. We started a small business, and I took a job selling bakery supplies to bakeries all over the tri-state area. But as we grew and we kind of molded ourselves back together by renting house from house to house, I knew that I needed a place. I needed a place to call home because I truly believed, even back then, supremely purposeful, before I was knowing what I was doing, that someday I would recover. Someday I would have a dream that I could execute. And I needed this property, a big piece of property to build a beautiful horse farm for my wife and to raise my children someday. I just knew that I would recover, and I wanted to dream big. Well, I found this piece of property out on the east side of town. There wasn't very many houses at that time. And I looked at that property over and over and over again, time and time again. And finally, one day, I mustered up enough gumption, about 12 acres. And I went to the owner and I said, listen, I really want to buy this land. I see my family being built there and raising my family and them growing up in a beautiful, beautiful home with a horse ranch someday. He kind of laughed at me. He says, do you have any money? And I said, no, sir, I don't have any money. I may have $500, but if you could work out a land contract with me, I'll surely be able to pay it off within 5 years. He said, how are you going to do that? I just said, I believe that I can. I know that I'll recover and I'll find a way. I'm selling and my ideas are working and we'll just get there. And he brushed me off. He said, you come back when you have some more money. And so I pondered it and I worked and I worked. I saw that property and I visited it. It was really quite an atrocious piece of property. I mean, to most people, they just didn't want to buy because it was way too much work, but I just saw it differently. My view of this property was differently. You see, when I looked at the property, it was differently to me because it was 12, 13 acres or so, and it was just beautiful to me, beautiful woods. Oh yeah, there was garbage all over it. There was a single lane driveway that had been grown over and trash had been thrown on it. Oh yeah, and there was that single wide trailer that was defunct and just a nasty hornet nest and encompassed by a colony of raccoons. Then there was the garage that was falling over on top of the trailer that was really a nasty piece. And then beyond that, on the other side of these two ratchet, filthy, scum-ridden, bacteria, algae-ridden ponds was a 4,000 square foot tin barn that had burned up and down and all the way around by inhabitants. But for some reason, when I looked at this wooded piece of property, I didn't see anything but opportunity. I mean, to me, it just looked like someday this could be amazing. My wife was even a little bit blushing when I first showed it to her. She was skeptical in some regards, but smiled and said, "Sure, babe, we can do that." Well, before I finally came to some terms with Terry Bramwell, who actually owned this property, and went back with $4,000 in my pocket, I had to find $4,000. I had to find a way to muster that money up. And I went to the bank one day and I said, Mr. Banker, can you loan me $4,000? He says, do you have any assets? I said, no, sir. He says, do you have any money in the bank? I said, I have $500. And he kind of chuckled as well. He says, you know what? I know you're a hard worker, Todd. Let me see what I can do. Do you have the title to your car or the registration? I said, I have the registration. It's a Ford Ranger. I don't know how much on it, but it's only 2 years old. He says, let me see that. He went back to the back of the room. He came back. He said, you know what? Today's your lucky day. Sign here, 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 and here. I said, are you kidding me? What's happening? He goes, well, I own that Ranger now, and here's $4,000. Well, that was a stroke of luck, if you will, but I don't call it luck. I call it force of nature, if you will. I willed that to happen. I put myself in that position to make it happen. Well, all of a sudden I have this $4,000. I went back to the owner and said, Mr. Bramwell, I have your $4,000. Would you please consider selling this to me on land contract? He said, I'll consider it. Come back tomorrow. Well, that very day I called my insurance guy and I walked out for one last look at that property. And I said, Mr. Insurance guy, his name was Matt. I said, Matt, look at this property. We drove out there separately. I was in my Ford Ranger and he was in a little bit nicer car, of course. And I said, Matt, look at this. I have a trailer. I have a garage. I have a tin barn of 4,000 square feet. I have some ponds and I have some wooded area. And he looked around. And he said, I see trash. I see mucky ponds. I see buildings that need to come down. I see tin that's been charred and burned and overused and abused and trash thrown everywhere. I said, Matt, look at it with me for just a second before I spend this money. What do you think this place deserves? Before I could say another word, he reached inside his coat pocket. It was a cold October day, and he pulled out a book of matches. And he looked at me and he said, take these. Handed me the matches. He walked into his car, and as he was muttering away and getting into the seat, If this place burned down, I'm none the wiser. And he drove off. He left me holding a book of blue tip matches. And it's funny, even back then, I remember thinking, why is he seeing this so differently? Why is he seeing all of the trees and the structures so differently? I mean, I even tried. I said, this doesn't look that good, but I can really see something happening here. Nevertheless, I took the book of matches and put them in my own pocket. I walked out and I closed the deal that very next day and was grateful for Mr. Bramwell and the bank for giving me some room to make that happen. Well, here's the deal. I secured that property, and not even a year later, we were mowing the yards and putting up horse ideas and fencing and posturing for things to happen. I put a used single wide trailer in place of the old single wide trailer. It was dilapidated. Someone took that off for trash. And I started to clean up the barn that was falling all over, and the tin barn that had all of the used cars and everything in it. I tried to clean that up. And as far as the pond, I threw some copper sulfate in there and cleaned that up so it didn't look so bad. I mean, all of a sudden things started to turn and look a little bit different, like my view, right? Not Matt's view or the insurance man view or Mr. Bramwell's view, but my view, the godly view that I had of the property. And as time progressed, we were mowing. And one particular day, I had a 9-end tractor out there, which is an old tractor with no real hydraulics to it. It's a 1950 or something. Almost damn near had to crank it to start it. I had my babies out there, my 5 and 6-year-old daughters, Courtney and Kendra, and my wife. They came out to see what I was doing in the back pasture. And I looked at it and I showed them, this is where the horse pasture 1's going to go. And this is where the horse pasture 2 is going to go. And this is where all of our life is going to be revolving around someday. And you're going to grow up here, kids. And as we kind of hugged and almost did a Norman Rockwell scene, and I patted them and hugged them and said, listen, I'm going to go back on this tractor. My wife said, thanks for all you're doing. We'll bring you some food. We'll do something. I said, babe, can you just jump on that tractor real quick and put this manual hydraulic down on the bush hog? It's a 5-foot rotating blade that cleans weeds and trees, and it was quite a contraption. And as she did that, she kind of put the lift down too soon, and it lowered down onto my gloved hand with leather gloves, and it came down slowly but quickly enough to capture my hand between the stabilizer bars, and all the weight of the bush hog and the hydraulics dropped down and couldn't be reversed back up. And my hand slowly but quickly crushed under the contraption and the weight of the pressure of all of the tractor and the bush hog, and my hand was flattened, squished, with no recovery capable. I tried desperately to lift up the bush hog with one hand, but that wasn't happening. My wife came around to try and help me, and she was starting to panic. The kids started to cry, and I knew this was hopeless. I said, don't worry. Go behind the tree, kids. Just get away right now. I'm going to deal with this. There wasn't a house away for a mile. There was no cell phones back then. And what was I going to do but be trapped like a rabid animal in the woods and watch my children watch me where I struggle? That was not going to happen. And I quickly asked them to leave, and I looked down at my hand, and I knew I had one chance and one chance only. I said a quick little prayer, and I counted to 3, and I pulled my hand out as quickly and as forcefully as I could. I can't believe it. My hand came out, but the glove stayed on. My middle finger was crushed. It was as thin as a piece of cardboard box. My children were crying. My wife was crying. I hugged them with my good arm, and I said, I'll be back. I'm running to the house. I'm going to jump in the car and drive to the Cameron Hospital. And I tell you all this because it's going to end up for a story that understands your view. We see things one way and they become another way, good, bad, or indifferent. As I got to the hospital, I went to the emergency room and they put me into the emergency right away. We'll get to you right away, Mr. Saylor. We'll take care of that right away. Don't you worry. And as my hand was throbbing, my brain was hurting, my arm was hurting, my whole body was hurting, and I was sure they would get to me and save this finger so I could hold my children once again. Stick it in the salt water, Mr. Saylor. Leave your glove on, and we'll take it off when we get back. We'll surely be to you soon. Well, 15 minutes happened, 20 minutes happened, 30 minutes happened, a half hour happened, an hour happened, an hour and a half later, no one was there to work on me. Well, you can imagine my view of the circumstances, my view of the situation. My view was that I was pissed. No one's here to take care of me. My situation is dire. My finger is going to be lost. I'm never going to be able to hold my children the same. I'm probably going to lose, if not the finger, who knows, maybe the hand. What could happen next? An hour and 45 minutes later, the doctor finally rolls up into my room and he looks at me with the nurse. He says, "I'm sorry I was so late, Mr. Saylor." And just before I could chew on him a little bit, he quickly but softly said to his nurse, "We're sorry, but the other guy didn't make it." The other guy didn't make it. What do you mean the other guy didn't make it? He died? Yes, we're sorry to say that. Let me take a look at your finger now. My view changed immediately. My anger, my frustration, even my pain went away. Isn't that crazy about your view and what it does for your pain? If you have pain or not have pain, and how it just changes your entire body and your emotional structure in your system. My view changed once again. From prosperity and hope to anguish and pain to from empathy. And maybe I just don't have it so bad. You know, my finger's a long ways away from my heart, right? Well, I stopped the story right there because I want to talk to you about the view. My opening quote was, "We clearly don't know what we don't know until we open our view." And I want to challenge you listeners to open your view. I want you to think about that story, how the view shrinks and widens and widens and shrinks, and how things change as we talk and move through life, right? And age refines us and dines us, right? But let me tell you something. In all trials, the beauty becomes greater than the anguish. Let me repeat that to you. In all trials, the beauty becomes greater than the anguish. Now, when I'm 29, 28, I don't understand that. My view was narrow, but I was learning a valuable lesson that I can share with you right now. Napoleon Hill told us, in all trials, the beauty becomes greater than the anguish. The beauty of my finger healing and being sewn back on over time became greater than the anguish of that weight and that pain. You can follow me now? Can you hear me? Right? The beauty in all trials become greater than the anguish, right? So I want you to open your view and think about this. So as we move through life and we move through time, I want you to start to think about your view. And I want you to understand that your view is your reward. If you see small things, you get small things. If you see large things, you get large things. If you see and view things narrowly, you get things narrowly. If you view things curmudgeon or negative, they become negative. And I want your view broadened. I want you to see other sides of these things. I want you to see other people's sides of things. And here are the 7 things I want to share with you about your view and how to build your view and how to expound your view and to understand that your view is your reward. So 1, I want you to understand this. 1, be grateful. I want you to be grateful. I want you to wake up and look for the things that are good in your life. Don't start with the things that are wrong. Don't start with the things that you have to do today that you're not going to like to do. Start with the things that are great. Force yourself to be grateful. Start from a place of gratitude. We've heard it probably 100 times, but we don't live it. I want your view to start from gratitude. I want your view to level up in the beginning and start with gratitude, right? Number 2, I want you to use red lights as a metaphor for yourself in life. We're driving around pretty much every day and we're stuck at red lights and we're frustrated. Why won't this light turn green? This light seems 2 minutes longer than it's ever. I'm trying to time these lights, but I can't time these lights. Red lights drive me crazy. I sit there and I stew. Well, red lights need to become a viewing possibility for you. I want you to project and reflect at red lights. Red lights are metaphor for you going forward, right, or left. You're not going backwards. At a red light, I want you to think about when you're driving, you're thinking about forward, right, or left. In your life, I want you to think about forward, sideways, or sideways, which way you're going to go. You need to understand that red lights are a formation of our lights in our life. I want you to light your life at red lights. I want you to start stopping at red lights and start thinking about, where am I going next? I know I'm going home, or I know I'm going to work, and I'm stuck at a red light, but you're still stuck there. You're sitting, you're taking deep breaths, you're resting a little bit. I want you to start thinking about the next forward move you're going to make in your life at every red light. Reflect on it, use it, love it, learn it, man, lead with it, right? Number 3, I want you to have an opinion. Insignificant people don't have opinions. I know everybody has an opinion, so they say, right? And we know that saying, but it's not quite that true. Opinions matter. More importantly, your opinion matters. Insignificant people, those that don't want to get caught up in things, I understand your safety there, but I want you to all to have an opinion. Even if you don't say it, I think it's healthy that you have an opinion. And more importantly, I want you to listen to other people's opinions. I know we've been taught not to worry about other people so much, but I think it's okay to listen to other people's opinions. I think that's part of the problem in this world right now in our political warfare is that we don't listen to other people's opinion. We get stuck in quagmire of our only thoughts and our opinions, and that they can only be right. Nobody's always right. Nobody's ever always right. Nobody's ever really always wrong. There's got to be give and take. I need you to see the other side of the equation. I need you to expand your view to incorporate other people's positions. Put yourself in other people's positions. I want you to have an opinion. I want you to hear opinion, and I want you to take action with opinions. Opinions matter. Opinions shape us. They mold us. They create this resilience. They help us understand other people, and they help us understand ourselves. I want you to broaden your view. I want you to reward yourself with a view of understanding other people's opinions. And number 4, that leads us right into empathy. We need to have empathy for their opinions. We have to come from a position of gratitude for their position of opinion, and we have to have empathy. Why are they troubled so? Why are they passionate so? Why do they drive so hard so? Why are they so relentless so? Why are they my foe? We have to be understanding and empathetic in those regards. We have to, because your view is your reward. Your view in life is your reward, and you can't reward or win yourself or others if you're not willing to intake other people's ideas and be empathetic. Now, empathetic doesn't mean you have to agree with other people all the time. It just means try to be empathetic. Why are they hurting? Why are they so boisterous? Why are they doing the things that they're doing the way that they're doing? There's got to be something driving them that way. Doesn't mean that you have to agree. It just means, why can't you be empathetic with the other side? This will drive your view and will give you a reward of a positive view. Number 5, this too shall pass. My father told me this. My mother told me this. I didn't listen to it as a kid because it didn't really make that much sense to me. This too shall pass. What shall pass? I'll tell you what will pass. This time, this grief, this trouble, this feeling, this pain, this worry, this time is going to pass, and you're going to be stronger for it. I want you to say those things when you feel like there's no way out. This too will pass. I will keep myself healthy, and I will extend the game, right? This too shall pass. Sometimes we just have to extend the game. Sometimes we just have to stay healthy enough for something to change in the area, something to change in the team, something to change in the playing field, something to change in your life. We need to extend that game, right? This too shall pass. Your view will be broadened, and you will be rewarded. This too shall pass. Stay positive. And number 6, I want you to understand that we exist on a world of many planes. There are more than one side on every situation. There's generally 2 or more, right? We have to understand that just like this political world we're living in, I got to tell you, these 2 sides are living in diabolically differently alternate universes. They both believe they're exactly right with no mercy for the other side. And why can't they think like me? It just ain't never going to happen. Just never going to happen. They are right in their minds. The other side is right in their minds. Until either side can both start to broaden their view and try to understand what the other side is trying to accomplish and have empathy for their thoughts and create a broader view for their reward, this is not going to change. Don't be a part of that nomenclature and that pontification of problems and the worries of the world if it doesn't change exactly my way. We can do this. We can find middle ground and we can find the right way. I need your view. I need you to be rewarded of a view of objectionality and reward. Your view is your reward. Start with you, right? These alternate universes are different planes of playing fields and thought processes. Nobody's wired exactly the same. We're all wired differently, and we got to understand the way they feel so we can jockey our position, so we can understand the way we feel and how we can move things together. I'm just challenging you to come from gratitude, right? Look at that red light, have an opinion, be more empathetic, and understand this too shall pass. Extend the game, but everybody lives on a different plane in many regards, and we got to get these planes to line up. And last but not least, I want you to use your view to become more supremely purposeful. Your view, the control of your view, the control of your mood set, the control of your mindset will alter the world one person at a time. So let's start with you. Let's start altering the world and being supremely purposeful. Successful people are supremely purposeful. Successful people are wired differently. They do different things. They live differently. They love differently. They fight differently. They cry differently. They heal differently. They do all things differently. We all are wired differently. We are an adjective that's been modified by an adverb. We are differently. I want you to understand that we can do these things. In closing, I want you to understand we need to be grateful. We need to use these red lights. We need to have an opinion. We need to be more empathetic. And we need to understand these times will pass and we can grow and be healed and be better for them. That our worlds are different planes that we can see things on a much broader view plane for, so we can guide ourselves and others through these planes. We need to use our view to be more supremely purposeful. I was driving through Cleveland one time when I was much younger and I was having a tough time. And I want to tell you this quick story in Cleveland. It was snowy, rainy day, and I drove for overnight and stayed the night. And I had a big deal that was supposed to happen. Ultimately, the deal fell through, and it was just a miserable time for me. I was depressed. My children were young, and we were in that trailer situation. I was trying to dig my way out of that. As you know, I had 5 years to figure out how to pay for it. Things were picking up, but this last month was horrible. Deal after deal fell through. And as I was leaving Cleveland, a beaten man, I don't know if any of you have ever been depressed, but I was depressed at that point. Matter of fact, I felt like crying as I was driving home, and spent maybe $500 over the last 2 days in business expenses and came home empty. And I remember talking to God, and I remember saying, God, just somehow tell me you're here. Give me a sign, right? Have you ever done that? Have you ever said, God, man, are you out there? Just show me your face. Give me a sign. Show me a deer or something running around in the yard or in the woods, or give me something epic. Show me something. Prove that you're listening and you care about me. Well, I passed that fleece on to my Lord, and I said, Lord, please just show me some sunshine in Cleveland, because Cleveland didn't have much sunshine that time of the year for sure. And I never really had a lot of luck in Cleveland. Maybe it was because I was unhappy about the way I got stood up in that situation. But here's the deal. I remember driving out of there and saying, God, just show me a sliver of sunshine. And as I asked that and looked up for the third or fourth time, not did the sunshine ever show up, but the clouds got darker. At 2 in the afternoon, it got darker and darker. Matter of fact, it felt like 2 in the morning. But I said, God, why are you doing this to me? I'm just asking for simple sunshine. Part these clouds. Give me a sliver. I know the sun's up there. And as I asked it for one final time, like he even got angrier. The snow turned to sleet, and the sleet turned to hail. It was vicious. My car was getting pounded. The skies were dark. What is going on? I have angered him. I am alone. I am desperate. And as I turned around the corner to come through Cleveland proper, I looked to my right as the clouds got darker and the hail got worse. The windshield wipers were clicking. And I looked to my right, and there it was, as it slowly appeared, the largest billboard I'd ever probably seen in my life at that time. And as I came around the corner, it was yellow. And I realized it was yellow because it was the largest billboard I'd ever seen. And it said Sunshine Baking Company on it. And its logo was a massive sunshine radiating on a billboard. See, my view was of what God could provide for me in the skies. My view was of a parting cloud and some epic, maybe dropping down of Christ, or some epic thing where the sun rays and the lightning bolt and light and all this. But no, that's not what God had in mind for me. I feel like he simply said, Todd, it's not always the way you want it. Todd, it's not always going to be easy. Todd, it's not going to always be the way you see things. You see, Todd, your view is too narrow. Your view of me is too narrow. Your view of others is too narrow. Why don't you understand why people say no and you're having bad times? Why are you so focused on yourself, Todd? Your view is far too narrow. Todd, you must get better. Broaden your view, because your view is your reward, Todd. Do you hear me? Yes, God, I hear you. It was such a blessing. I was so encouraged. I was emotional, and I drove home. I just want you to know that that story is true. I want you to know that those things do happen. If you're willing to open your view, you will have the reward of an opened view. You will be blessed by those 7 steps in becoming an open-viewed person, wired differently. So in conclusion, I give you this acronym, the VIEW, V-I-E-W. So pay attention here, my friends. Here we go. View. I need you to visualize the possibilities and then look again differently. The view, the V stands for visualize. Visualize the possibilities, then look again differently, right? Differently. We know what that word means now. And I, let's look at I. I means interpret what's happening and then reinterpret it differently. There's always another way, right? And E, extend the game. Extend the game until you can see a path differently. If you're miserable, you're tough, you're tired, just stay alive, baby. Extend the game, because this too shall pass, right? And once we're healthy again, once we're wise again, we'll be able to see things differently. We're going to extend the game until we can see a path differently. And last but not least, in close, I want you to understand W, the willingness to receive help from others and submit to a higher power of knowledge, especially God. I want you to be W, willing to receive help from others. Don't be curmudgeon. I need you to be willing to receive help from others. Receive help from others, including our God, right? Including our friends, including your boss, your coach, your preacher, your teacher, your parents. Don't be so prideful. I need you to be willing to receive help from others. That's the view. We can do this thing called life. I appreciate you listening to me. Your view is your reward. Your view is your reward. Well, I want to close with a quote from Henry David Thoreau. It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see. It's not just what you look at that matters, it's what you see. And don't forget the quote from Napoleon Hill. In all trials, the beauty becomes greater than the anguish. Napoleon Hill, amazing man. In all trials, the beauty becomes greater than the anguish. And of course, my early quote was, we clearly don't know what we don't know until our view is opened. So open our view. All right. That's the end of this message. Appreciate it all, and wired differently fashion. Remember that we are differently. We are wired differently. And don't forget that your view is your reward. See things differently. Come on now. Let's do this thing called life. Wired differently. We got this thing. Appreciate you. Till next time. Wired differently. Todd out. Have a great day. Todd Saylor. Wired differently.